The security klaxon screamed through the USS Meridian at a frequency that made Commander Kickal's sensory ridges flatten. Against his skull, his console lit up with threat indicators he'd only seen once before during the incident that killed 3 handlers in under 6 minutes. Combat signatures detected. Nursery wing, multiple hostile life forms engaged. Kixanal was already running, his claws scraping against the deck plating as he activated the emergency response channel. All units. Code Vermilion in Sector 9, SEAL. Bulkheads, medical teams on standby. Tranquilizer protocols authorized. The Xerian cubs, it had to be 4 juvenile apex predators, each one capable of tearing through reinforced steel by their 3rd month. The diplomatic mission from the Xerian collective had assured him their young would remain sedated during transport. That had been a lie. The cubs had awakened 6 days ago, and every attempt to manage them had ended in bloodshed. 3 handlers dead, 2 more in medical with injuries that would take months to heal. Even with regeneration therapy, the cubs were supposed to be contained in individual quantum-sealed cells separated by force fields that could stop a battle cruiser. Whatever was happening now meant those containment measures had failed. Kixel rounded the corner with his security team, weapons charged, expecting carnage. The nursery doors hung open, ripped from their hydraulic mounts. Inside, the combat signatures pulsed stronger, heart rates elevated, respiration aggressive, body temperatures spiking with predatory heat. He burst through the doorway and froze. The cubs were fighting, all of them, their massive bodies, each already the size of an adult human, formed a snarling, snapping circle. Fangs flashed in the artificial light. Deep growls vibrated through the deck. They circled something in the center of the room with a coordinated aggression of a pack, establishing dominance. But they weren't fighting each other properly. They were posturing, displaying, each one trying to get closer to something while keeping the others back, and they weren't attacking the object of their attention. That object was a human. She sat cross-legged on the floor, a sandwich halfway to her mouth, watching the cubs with mild interest. Her maintenance uniform was covered in grease stains and metal dust. A worn leather jacket lay on the floor between the cubs. That's what they were fighting over. Oh, hey, Commander, the human said, taking a bite of her sandwich. Don't worry, they're just being dramatic. Kixnall's translator Chip struggled with the casual tone. His security team had their weapons trained on the cubs, waiting for his order. The largest cub, the one they designated Specimen 1, the one that had killed 2 handlers by itself, lunged forward with a roar that should have preceded a death strike. The human didn't flinch. The cub grabbed the jacket in its jaws and pulled backward. Immediately, the other 3 attacked. Not the human, but the cub with a jacket. That's mine. The second cub's translator rendered its growl into something approximating language, though the aggressive posturing suggested it was barely maintaining coherence. You had it last rotation. The third one snapped back, its claws gouging furrows in the deck as it tried to pull the jacket away. The human, her identification badge read Lily Brennan, maintenance tech, sighed and took another bite of her sandwich. Guys, seriously, you're going to rip it, then? Nobody gets it. All of them froze. 4 pairs of predatory eyes locked onto the human. Then, as if coordinated by some Invisible signal, they released the jacket and sat, perfect discipline. Instant obedience. The human stood up, brushed crumbs off her lap and walked over to pick up the jacket. The cubs watched her with an intensity that made every hair on Kix Null's body stand up. That was the look, the focused, absolute attention that preceded a kill. Strike, he'd seen it in the surveillance footage right before handler Dick's NARS. Life signs had flatlined. She draped the jacket over her shoulder. You can play with it later after you calm down. She glanced at Kicknull. They get rowdy when they're hungry. Did anyone feed them? This morning, Kicknull's mouth opened. No sound came out. The cubs the same. Cubs that had ignored every command, resisted every protocol, killed everyone who tried to establish authority, arranged themselves in a neat line behind the human and followed her toward the door. Anyway, I've got to fix the atmospheric processor in section 12, she continued, walking past the security team like 4 killing machines. Weren't trailing behind her like ducklings. You guys coming or what? The cubs trotted after her, falling into formation. Kix Andal finally found his voice. Stop, everyone, stop moving. The human paused and turned around. The cubs stopped instantly, sitting again. Those cubs, Kixall said slowly, killed their last 3 handlers. Yeah, I heard about that. She shifted her sandwich to her other hand. Sounds like those guys didn't really understand cups. You can't just boss them around. They're kids. Kids, Kixanol repeated, his translator surely malfunctioning. Those are Xerian apex predators. They recognize only dominance hierarchy. They respond only to superior force. They, the smallest cub, chose that moment to bring something over to the human. It dropped a mangled piece of equipment at her feet, looked like part of a ventilation grate, and made a chirping sound. Oh, thank you, buddy, the human said, bending down to inspect it. But I already have 3 of these. Maybe bring me something else next time. The cub's tail analog wagged. Kixnull felt his understanding of xenobiology cracked down the middle. Kixnull spent the next 8 hours reviewing security footage, and each recording made less sense than the last. Day 1, Lily entering the nursery wing to repair a malfunctioning air filtration unit. The cubs watching from their cells, alert but calm. She worked for 20 minutes, humming something off key. When she left, all readings showed the cubs' stress levels had dropped by 30%. Day 3, Lily returning to fix a shorted power coupling. 1 cub, Specimen 2, had somehow escaped containment. Instead of attacking it, followed her around, watching her work. When she packed up her tools, it brought her a dead maintenance drone circuit, still sparking. She'd said thanks and petted its head before leaving. The cub had purred. Xerian apex predators didn't purr. Day 5, all containment fields mysteriously deactivated. The cubs found Lily in the cargo bay, inventorying spare parts. They arranged themselves around her workspace. She talked to them while she worked. Hand me that voltage regulator. No, the blue one. Yeah, that's it. Specimen 3 had carefully lifted the component with its teeth and placed it in her palm. The current footage showed Lily making her rounds through Deck 6, the cubs trailing behind her in single file. When she stopped to check a junction box, they sat. When she moved, they moved. Perfect coordination without a single command given. This is impossible, Kixanal muttered. His second officer, Jinsa, pulled up another file. "Commander, look at this. 15 minutes ago." The video showed Handler Brixton attempting to retrieve Lily's jacket. From the nursery, the cubs had been docile all morning, right up until Brixton touched the jacket, then all protocols had collapsed. They'd moved as a coordinated unit, driving him back against the wall, not quite attacking, but close enough that Brixton had activated the emergency beacon. 2 more handlers responded. The cubs had injured both before Lily arrived. She'd walked in, assessed the situation, and said, "What did you do?" "We were attempting to confiscate unauthorized items from the containment area," Brixton had explained from his position against the wall. "So you try to take their stuff?" She'd shaken her head. "Guys, let him go. He didn't know better." The cubs had immediately retreated. Lily picked up her jacket, inspected it for damage, and left. The cubs followed. Brixton stood there unharmed but visibly shaking. The door chimed. "Commander, Dr. Nixel has arrived from the Zirian research vessel." Kixnall straightened. Finally, someone with actual expertise. Dr. Nixel had written the foundational texts on Zirian predator development. If anyone could explain this, it would be him. The doctor entered, his scaled hide marked with the silver patterns of advanced age. He moved with the careful precision of someone who'd spent decades working with dangerous species. "Show me." They found Lily and engineering subtle too, calibrating a plasma manifold. The cubs sat nearby watching. One of them, Specimen 1, kept bringing her things: a broken tablet, a length of cable, something that might have been part of the navigation console. "Oh, buddy, no." Lily examined the navigation component. "Where did you even find this?" The cub chirped proudly. "You're going to get me in trouble." But she scratched behind its sensory ridges anyway. It leaned into her touch, making a sound like grinding metal mixed with contentment. Dr. Nixel observed in silence, his analytical equipment recording every interaction. After 20 minutes, he turned to Kixnall. "The cubs recognize her as dominant pack authority, standard behavioral hierarchy, but she doesn't display any dominance." Kixnall protested. "Exactly. It's impossible." They watched as Specimen 2 dragged something large around the corner, a cooling unit. An entire cooling unit ripped from its housing, sparks still flying from severed connections. Lily looked up from her work. "Oh great, now I have to fix that too." She laughed, the sound echoing in the corridor. "You guys are making more work for me." The cub dropped the unit at her feet, tail wagging. Dr. Nixel stepped forward. Drawing himself to full height, he bared his teeth, the universal predator signal for dominance challenge. His claws extended. He released a chemical signature that should trigger submission responses in any Zirian. The cubs glanced at him, then returned their attention to Lily. Dr. Nixel tried again, this time with a vocalization pitched at the frequency that should command absolute obedience. The cubs' ears flicked in his direction. One yawned. Lily stood up, stretching. "All right, break time's over." She picked up her jacket from where it lay on the floor. All the cubs' eyes locked onto it. She slipped it on, and they immediately arranged themselves in perfect formation around her, 2 on each side. Maintaining precise spacing, she walked toward the damaged cooling unit. They followed in an organized line, moving as one cohesive unit. Dr. Nixel stood there, his dominance displays completely ignored, watching the impossible Procession disappeared down the corridor. The emergency xenobiology conference. Assembled within the hour, Dr. Nixil stood in the observation bay, surrounded by holographic projections of 3 of the galaxy's leading experts on predator species development. Dr. Zith from the Genetic Research Institute materialized. First, her crystalline form refracting light in sharp angles. Show me the footage again. Dr. Bohr's image flickered to life. Next, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. This contradicts 60 years of established research. The third scientist, Dr. Lix Anna, appeared with her multiple sensory appendages already twitching. Analytical patterns. There must be a logical explanation. Kixnall replayed the security feed. Lily working on a damaged power relay. While the cubs arranged themselves around her workspace, one cub handed her a tool. Wrong tool. She thanked it anyway, set it aside, and grabbed the correct one herself. The cub's tail wagged. Impossible, Zeal stated flatly. Zirian cubs at this development stage cannot differentiate between cooperative behavior and submission displays. They should interpret her acceptance of incorrect tools as weakness. Theory 1. Benor began. The human is emitting a chemical compound we haven't detected, something that mimics Zirian pack hierarchy markers. They scanned Lily remotely. No unusual chemical signatures. Theory 2. Subsonic vocalizations triggering instinctive obedience patterns. Acoustic analysis showed nothing beyond normal human speech frequencies. Theory 3. The cubs are ill. Neurological damage affecting their predatory responses. Full biological scans of all specimens came back normal, better than normal. They were thriving. 12 theories. 12 tests. 12 failures. Dr. Alexander's appendages twisted in confusion. We need direct observation, controlled environment, scientific protocols. They set up in the main cargo bay, convert temporarily into a research space. Lily arrived with her toolkit. The cubs trailing behind her. She looked at the assembled equipment and raised an eyebrow. Is this going to take long? I've got 6 more repairs scheduled. Please proceed with your normal routine. Dr. Nixil instructed. Ignore us. Lily shrugged and moved to the malfunctioning gravity generator they'd positioned as her work assignment. The cubs settled around her. One rested its head on her boot, another curled up against the generator housing, watching her with huge predatory eyes. The scientists observed in silence for 10 minutes. Then Dr. Zalith spoke through the comm system, her voice carefully neutral. Human, why do they follow you? Lily glanced up from her work. Follow me. They're just curious kids, she laughed. The sound casual and unguarded. They like watching me work. It's kind of cute actually, but the territorial displays over your jacket. Bohr pressed. Zirian cubs establish dominance through possession of valued resources. Oh. That. Lily set down her sonic wrench and picked up the leather jacket lying nearby. It smells like me in there. Teething. Figured they could chew on it instead of chewing through the ship's hull. She placed the jacket on the floor between the cubs. They immediately perked up, moving toward it. Within seconds, 2 cubs had grabbed opposite ends and began pulling. Growls filled the cargo bay. Deep, threatening sounds that made every monitoring device spike into danger ranges. The scientists tensed. This was it, the aggression threshold. Violence would follow, but the cubs weren't biting each other. They were tugging, pulling their movements. Controlled, when one lost its grip, it circled around and grabbed again. Other two watched, tails wagging, waiting for their turn. "See," Lily said, returning to her work. "There. Playing, it's just play fighting, Doctor." Lakana's appendages stopped moving. Entirely, that behavior should trigger murder instinct when resources are contested. Zirian cubs fight to death. This is fundamental biology, huh? Lily tightened the connection and checked her readings. Well, they're not doing that. The smallest cub abandoned the jacket game and approached Lily. It bumped its massive head against her leg. She absently reached down and scratched behind its ear ridges, the same motion someone might use with a domestic pet. The cub made a sound, a deep rumbling, rhythmic vibration. It was purring. Predator cubs don't purr, Dr. Zealot's voice cracked with distortion, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. Lily looked up at the holographic projections, confused. "Well, this one does," she shrugged and went back to her repairs. "Is that a problem?" Dr. Benor's mandibles clicked rapidly. "This violates every principle of Zirian behavioral development. They are apex predators, genetically programmed for aggression, territorial dominance, and hierarchical violence. They don't play. They don't purr. They certainly don't." The cub rolled onto its back, exposing its vulnerable belly to Lily. She rubbed it absently while reading a diagnostic display. "Good boy." "Yeah, you're a good boy." Its tail thumped against the deck. Dr. Nixel watched the scene, his entire worldview crumbling. 60 years of research, thousands of documented cases, every principle he'd established about predator development was being casually disproven by a human maintenance technician who didn't even realize what she was doing. "This changes everything," he whispered. Lily finished her repair, packed up her tools, and stood. "All right, guys, let's go. I've got that atmospheric scrubber on deck 9 to fix." The cubs lined up behind her, falling into formation. As she walked toward the exit, one of them grabbed her jacket and its teeth and carried it along. The other cubs trotting beside it peacefully. The cargo bay fell silent except for the soft hum of monitoring equipment recording the impossible. Dr. Nixel compiled his analysis over the next 6 hours, cross-referencing every interaction between Lily and the cubs. The data revealed a pattern so simple it had eluded every expert. "She treats them like they're not dangerous," he explained to the assembled command staff. His claws traced patterns across the holographic display, highlighting key moments. Every handler who entered that nursery expected violence. They projected fear, prepared for aggression, maintained defensive postures. The cubs responded to those threat displays with their own. But this human, Dr. Zalith's projection flickered with uncertainty. "Shows no fear response whatsoever." Exactly, no fear response means no predator response triggered. She's not prey, she's not a threat, she's just there. Dr. Nixel pulled up a video of Lily casually stepping over a sleeping cub to reach a maintenance panel. She's accidentally teaching them human social behaviors: play versus hunt, cooperation versus competition, concepts we believed Zirian cubs couldn't learn until maturity. Kixnall studied the data. These cubs were assigned to the diplomatic delegation for a reason. What was their intended purpose? Dr. Bohr's mandibles clicked nervously. They were meant to be raised as an elite guard force for the Zirian ambassador. Controlled aggression, absolute loyalty. Capable of neutralizing any threat, and now Kixon asked, though he already knew the answer. Now they're socialized. Empathetic, they've learned to play. Instead of fight, to cooperate instead of dominate. Dr. Nixel's voice carried a weight of realization. And GT, clears throat. And GT, you can't use them as weapons if they've learned human empathy. The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. The entire Zirian military doctrine was built on controlled aggression, predators raised in isolation, trained through dominance, deployed with calculated violence. If cubs could learn cooperation, learn empathy, learn to choose peaceful interaction over conflict, Admiral Jixer of the Zirian collective appeared via emergency channel. His scales darkened. With anger, remove the human from contact with the cubs immediately. This contamination of their development cannot continue. Contamination. Kixanal felt his own anger rising. They were to be weapons, now they are worthless. Separate them, retrain them. Standard protocols. The order was clear. Kix and all nodded reluctantly. Understood. They waited until Lily left for her rest cycle, then moved the cubs to isolated holding cells in the security wing. Reinforced containment. Maximum separation. The cubs went peacefully at first, confused but compliant. That lasted exactly 8 minutes. The security feeds showed it happening simultaneously. All cubs rising, testing their containment fields, then systematically destroying them. Not random violence. Calculated destruction. They tore through reinforced barriers like tissue. Emergency bulkheads slammed down. The cubs ripped through those 2, 3 holding cells obliterated. Structural damage to 2 decks. The cubs weren't attacking anyone, they were searching. Moving through the ship with purpose. Following some trail the sensors couldn't detect. They found the storage locker where Lily's jacket had been placed. They destroyed the door, grabbed the jacket and arranged themselves around it in a defensive formation. When security teams approached, the cubs showed the aggression everyone had expected from the beginning. Teeth bared, claws extended, the promise of violence radiating from every movement. Get Lily, Kixnell ordered. She arrived 10 minutes later, still in her sleep clothes, visibly annoyed. You want me to what now? It's the middle of the night cycle. The cubs are. I can see what the cubs are doing. She walked past the security cordon without hesitation, straight toward the defensive formation. Hey guys, what's going on? They mobbed her, not attacking, greeting, pushing against her legs, making those purring sounds, competing for her attention. She scratched heads and rubbed ears, completely unfazed by the destruction around her. They took my jacket. One cub's translator rendered the tone plaintive. We needed it. Another insisted. Lily looked at the demolished holding cells, the shredded bulkheads, the terrified security teams. Then she turned to Kick Snull, and her expression was harder than he'd ever seen it. You can't just rip kids away from someone they've bonded with. That's messed up. She picked up her jacket and put it on. These are babies. You don't traumatize babies because they're not developing the way you expected. That's not training, that's abuse. The cubs pressed against her, seeking reassurance. She provided it without thinking, her hands moving in gentle patterns across their heads. Admiral Jix's voice crackled. Through the comm, this is unacceptable. Those cubs are Syrian property intended for their kids. Lily interrupted her, voice flat, and I'm not letting you turn them into weapons. The diplomatic crisis lasted 3 days, heated transmissions between the Syrian collective, the Federation Council, and the USS Meridian filled subspace channels with threats, counter-threats, and increasingly bizarre proposals. The Zarans wanted their cubs back. The Federation wanted to avoid an interstellar incident. Lily wanted everyone to stop bothering her so she could finish her repairs. Compromise came from an unexpected source: the Syrian Elder Council, the governing body that predated the military hierarchy by millennia. They reviewed the footage, consulted their oldest records, and issued a statement that sent shock waves through both governments. We have forgotten what we once knew. Before we became weapons, we were children. Perhaps it is time to remember. Within a week, command issued new protocols. The human socialization program became official policy. Lily received a secondary designation as Cultural Integration Specialist, complete with a modest pay increase and absolutely no change to her actual duties. She still fixed broken equipment. The cubs still followed her everywhere. Now it was approved procedure instead of a crisis. The requests started arriving immediately. The Syrian diplomatic vessel wanted a human technician, then a research station studying juvenile predators, then a colony ship with a nursery wing. Within a month, 16 different facilities had submitted formal applications for human staff, specifically requesting maintenance personnel with demonstrated capability in cross-species interaction. Lily found the whole thing hilarious. They want more people like me. I just fix stuff and don't freak out when cubs bring me dead things. That's not special, but to the galaxy watching it was revolutionary. The cooling unit incident became the moment everything crystallized. Lily had been working in engineering. Sub 5, the cubs arranged around her. In their usual formation, she held out her hand. Sonic wrench, please. The largest cub carefully lifted a plasma cutter in its teeth and placed it in her palm. She examined it, her expression patient. Nobody, that's a plasma cutter. I need the sonic wrench. She pointed at her tool kit, the blue one. The cub's ears drooped. It returned to the kit, nosed through the contents, and brought back the sonic wrench. Good job. Lily's face lit up with genuine pride. See, you're learning. You're getting so good at this. The cub's tail wagged so hard it knocked over a maintenance drone. Kicksnull watched from the observation deck, Dr. Nixel beside him. And GT, clears throat. And GT. The scientist had barely left the ship, too fascinated by the ongoing behavioral data to return to his research vessel. She's created something we thought impossible, Dr. Nixel said quietly. What's that? Predators who choose not to predate, who understand the difference between play and violence, who value cooperation over dominance. He gestured at the scene below. For thousands of years, we believed aggression was inevitable, genetic, unchangeable. We built entire civilizations around managing that violence, and she's proven we were wrong. Below, Lily finished sealing the cooling unit and stretched. The cubs had dozed off around her workspace, their massive bodies curled up on and around her leather jacket. One had its head on her boot, another clutched a corner of the jacket in its teeth even in sleep. She stepped carefully over them, muttering just loud enough for the audio. Pickups to catch, all right, which of? You destroyed the navigation relay this time because I know it wasn't in accident someone thought it would make. A good present, the cubs' eyes opened. Instantly, they scrambled to their feet. Shaking off sleep, one of them looked particularly guilty. Yeah, I'm talking to you, buddy, but she was smiling. Come on, let's go assess the damage before. The commander has another breakdown about unauthorized demolitions. They followed her down the corridor in their organized line. The two smallest cubs had grabbed opposite ends of her tool belt and were engaged in a gentle two-gaffour as they walked, neither pulling hard enough to actually impede her movement. She didn't seem to notice, too focused on reading the damage report on her data pad. Engineering says it's going to take 6 hours to fix. 6 hours. Do you know how behind schedule that puts me? One cub chirped apologetically. Yeah, well, you should be sorry. Next time you want to bring me a present, maybe just find me a nice bolt or something. Not critical ship systems. Kix Andal pulled up the ship's log interface and began his daily entry. Stardate 330, 1.9. Requesting additional human maintenance staff for permanent assignment. Current technician has proven unusually effective at reducing security incidents. In Predator Development Wing, violent encounters down 100%, equipment damage paradoxically up 300%, though incidents now classified as play-related rather than containment breaches. Maintenance efficiency somehow improved despite constant supervision by 4 juvenile apex predators, unknown if correlation or causation, further study required. Note: pack of cubs has become attached to technician's jacket. Recommend human personnel bring spare clothing items. He paused, then added one final line. Note: previous assumptions about Predator development may require complete revision. Recommend expanding program. The cubs are thriving. Below Lily and her unusual entourage disappeared around a corner, the cubs' happy chirps echoing through the corridor as they argued over who got to carry the sonic wrench.